This is an introduction to the PlannersLab software. The name is a laboratory for planning the future. And when planning the future, you never know what exactly is going to come. So you need to have tools that are going to provide you the ability to ask questions and change your assumptions and be able to refine on what you feel is the correct outcome. So this is software for simulating and visualizing the future. We hope to provide tools to create models and give the ability to instantly ask questions and receive immediate feedback. So that way, if someone has a question, you can give them an answer right away without having to adjourn and come back later. The PlannersLab is made up of two parts, the modeling language and the playground. First, let's talk about the modeling language. The modeling language is where you write the logic of your model. You define the variables and the values and the sections where they're organized. The modeling language is written in your own words, English, Spanish, German, or whatever it is that you speak. Plus, it's also going to be written in your company's words, so using the terminology that you and your colleagues would use. And your goal is to write your model in a readable fashion that'll be understandable by any of your peers so you can explain it to them or anyone that might carry on your work after you. To enhance that readability, common variables are grouped into what we call nodes, and those are buckets for you to hold the similar variables so that way they can be easily found. The other part of the software is the playground. The playground is a place where you get to play with your assumptions. So obviously, when we're looking into the future, we need to be able to adjust our numbers and change the values that we have. And the playground provides you with that capability. There's instant charting and graphing just to view the results in your model. And the whole interface is drag and drop. So that way you can quickly move variables around and grab new pieces and place them out and throw them away when you don't need them. This way, you can quickly ask what-if questions and receive immediate results. Now let's move on to look at the PlannersLab software. Here I have an existing model that we have already created. This is a consulting budgeting example. My goal here is to add up the expenses, revenue, and profit for the people that are on my staff. The first thing to do is to design a tree structure that will hold the variables in your model. In this particular model, we have a staffing node which contains a professional, associates, and administrative node, an other expenses node where we'll be taking into account various things that aren't associated with the people, and a summary node where we're going to add up all of the expenses and revenue and profit for the entire company. The next thing to do when building a PlannersLab model is to define the columns or the time periods that you'll be looking at in this planning model. In most cases, this will be in terms of quarters, months, weeks, years, some type of time unit, but it could be project 1 through project 7 or X, Y, Z. The goal is you write down what you expect your column statement to be, and we'll be able to evaluate that. In this particular model, I have quarter 1, 2008 through quarter 4, 2009. So we're looking at 8 quarters worth of information, or 2 years. And keep that in mind while I'm going through the rest of the model. Now let's look at the equations. I'm going to click on the professional node over here on the left, and that will display the equations that are associated with the professional node. First we have days billed. Days billed equals 250, 275, 300, and so on. What we're doing is listing the values for days billed for each quarter. So in the first quarter we have 250, in the next quarter we have 275, and 300 for the third, until we finally get out to the fifth quarter is 350. But if you notice, our model has 8 quarters. So the rule is, whatever is the last thing in an equation, we'll repeat that for the remaining time periods. Next we have billing rate. Billing rate equals 1400 for 4, comma 1500. Here we have an all blue word called for. For is a keyword that specifies how many times we're going to repeat a value. So in this case, we're going to have 1400 for 4 quarters, comma 1500, which will then be used for the remaining time. So we'll have 1400 for the first year, 1500 for the next. Revenue is the product of days billed and billing rate. Then we have salary per day, which is 500 for the first year, 550 for the next. People expense is the product of salary per day and days billed. And finally we have profit, which equals revenue minus people expense. So hopefully, after understanding a few rules, you can read the formulas that we're using to build this model. Now let's look at some of the other nodes. I'll click on the Associates node and take a look at the values for the associate people. We have days billed, billing rate, all the same variables that we did before, just different values. Same thing in the administrative node, same variables and formulas, just different values. Now if we look at the staffing node, I'm going to sum up the revenue and expenses for all of my people. So here I want to be able to grab variables from other nodes. And now we see a new keyword called in. So I'm going to say revenue equals revenue in professional. So the in keyword is specifying where revenue is going to come from. In this case, it's going to come from the professional node. Plus revenue in associates, plus revenue in administrative. So I can add up the revenue from all three places. Then we have expenses, which is people expenses in professional, plus people expenses in associates, plus people expenses in administrative. Then we have an other expenses node where we're just line item listing the other expenses. So here we have legal, materials, equipment, and travel and entertainment. Then finally, when we want to add those up, we have total other expenses. And in this equation, we're using another keyword called sum, where we're going to add up everything from legal through travel and entertainment. So we'll just grab all 4 of those variables. Finally, we have a summary node, where we're going to add up the revenue and expenses in all of the other nodes and get a total profit. So first we have total revenue. Total revenue equals revenue in staffing, because that's the only area where we're getting money in. Next we need to calculate the expenses. So first we'll grab the expenses from all the people. We have total people expenses equals expense in staffing times an overhead and benefits rate. Then we have total expenses, which equals total people expense plus total other expense in the other expense node. And then finally, we can get profit equals total revenue minus total expenses. Now that we have defined all of the variables and values that we want in our model, we can now